I'm willing briefly to try to describe what is the obvious theory that Obama put down by working with the culprits, Kaplan, and suppose your starting point is that Yoko Ono was an innocent party and had nothing to do with Gail Burstyn. That the family that surrounded me, that had so much contact with Japan and so much power, and didn't even seem to notice what was happening to me, um, are credible witnesses to the complaint that I could have saved John Lennon, but was on drugs. So what they did was they created a parental deception mode and used linguistic code switching research to prove that it existed. And of course, they neglected to mention that there are complications in code switching when it comes to the establishment in Pittsburgh because they tortured me. So they neglected to mention that. So it's hard to address the issue of what they pulled from the point of view of juvenile detention psychology to get their um, what do they call it, to get their mope to come clean. So what you would be dealing with there is a New York power edifice that was justifying hypocrisy on pragmatism. John Lennon was a great hero. It doesn't matter if he did drugs. Jimmy Curry is a squish. And if he did drugs, he could have saved John Lennon. And they try to come up with storylines that create parallels. This is a sort of Taliban routine. They had this place called Caliban Books. It was stealing millions of dollars worth of art, precious archives, implicated in lying to about and torturing me, robbing me. I mean, one of the people from the food co-op walked off with my stamp collection, which was not worth $1 million, but it had a lot of interesting material in it that I would still. I mean, I spent my childhood going over it with my father. That alone is reason not to lose it and why I held on to it. But I could sense something much more important than this um, horrifying ripoffs. And even the sadistic cruelty that was being visited on me was going on. And it wasn't just the $6 million heist from the museum. I mean, even Allegheny County admitted that that was a pittance compared to what's actually at stake because they let Shulman off with house arrest after ripping off the museums for $6 million. They let him off with house arrest. It makes you wonder what he's blackmailing them with. Well, Shulman was a accountant for Obama and Kaplan. You know, they were all stuck together with even Trumpington is sticking together with Shulman and Ken Crimson on the story of Leslie Katz. So, you know, it's sort of hard to work out even to the concept that would be at work in the 80s if legitimately Yoko Ono was shocked to discover that there was a script in her husband's disappearing act, Houdini. What would they say? Okay, well, the Beatles' White Album cleverly concocted a drug culture. And Lennon buffed up. It was nothing. It wasn't all that bad. We just did some heroin, some coke with our dinner. And Queerbait should admit that he was out sniffing with the Pitmans. And you wonder what kind of federal system of communication is this? Well, John Lennon was working for Her Majesty's Secret Service. He had a license to overdose a generation if he could, a license to toke, a license to have a little coke with her. And he was up against a few people J. Edgar Hoover took issue with Ian Fleming when he and Alan Dawes said they should be able to hunt down suspected traitors in the United States and kill them. J. Edgar Hoover said, no, you don't. Not on my watch, you don't. You British eccentric crazy. You turn over your double O license the minute you cross into the United States. You understand me? J. Edgar Hoover was not my hero. But there were a few people who went after Lennon. They said, you can't just do this. They wanted to deport him. At least they put on a stage play about wanting to deport him. That's what I'm driving at. If you follow the script of the stage play, somebody might have said, well, look, this guy was trying to get help and had a brain injury and had been tormented and was living in terrible fear and had no idea what was going on. Bottom line. But Ringo Starr said, oh, no, he's Hercules. He hitchhiked from Pittsburgh to St. Louis. That whips around his neck even all the multitude. And that's the way they actually operated. So what does that mean? You get the idea, the feel of the script comes from, the real danger to them was that I was innocent of all of this. That, for some reason, that really preyed on their minds. That made them sick and disgusted with hate. And so they hired Kaplan, the pawn shop dude. McWade tried to plant a joint on me in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Their lawyers for Reagan were pushing dope and LSD all through. They were Israelis all through high school. They push hard drugs on anybody who was vulnerable constantly. And these were the Reagan attorneys. Miles Kirshner, um, lived over by Mr. Rogers. Matt Marcus was burning people's arms gangrenous with pokers from the fireplace while designing sets for Mr. Rogers. And Obama's like, oh, Joel Kaplan, we will see you in court. They know that a terror trauma victim who is deaf can easily, who the union wants, oh no, son, can just be manipulated. You know, they have these Axis nabobs armed on the streets saying, we know where you live, we know who you love. That's the American system of justice. These armed offenders working for the intelligence services saying, we know where you live and we know who you love. And there's nothing suspicious about this because it's all Ringo Starr, right? And that's like the override switch. Somebody wanted me to address having a gun pointed at you. Well, I've had guns pointed at me. I didn't like it. And it's terribly despicable that America claims it has laws. I mean, I subscribe to Twitter. Jimmy Carter, I can stand. Biden, I can stand sometimes. I don't subscribe to these gentlemen, but I can almost stand them. But you're supposed to live in a system of laws. I mean, when I see Clinton, forget it. Bushy turn Obama, just forget it. Don't want to hear it. It's full of these cruddy little entrapments, misinterpreted signals purposefully. Like this white woman was killed by a black woman. And then I turn on Twitter and this dude says, click a heart if you love all black women, or you believe black women should be defended. And of course, what do you're in solidarity with the murder of a white woman. Well, neat. So you're supposed to click on you love Bush. Well, I don't love Bush. We live in a society. I was deaf and a civilian and a child. And his magical Secret Service says you were from my ship in the Navy. So I'm going to get Clint Eastwood to put you through such a grinder that you shed tears of horror and solidarity every time you hear the words NAM veteran. Civilian, deaf, illegal. Understand? And they have these poachers that come around who own pawn shops and sell pistols to the low and downtrodden. Anybody who has $15 can get one. Or used to be, that's how much they were. I never wanted one. Ugh. Come around and say, did he smoke some pot when you pushed pot for Reagan's lawyers? Well, yeah, he seemed to inhale too. Wow, neat. That's so good because now Mr. Bush can put him through a special veterans training. Bleed his brains in and give him Parkinson's disease. Man, that's gonna make some guys feel better. No solidarity with Bush. You don't like Bush, you're not a patriot. You don't like Bush on Twitter, you're not a patriot. Illegal and criminal operations in cold blood, organized terror, organized domestic terror in cold blood. And yet, weirdly enough, a partnership of Yoko Ono with these lopers who ran the CIA. It's like Yoko Ono wearing the velvet glove of Nixon, or Nixon wearing the velvet glove of Yoko Ono. But whatever you want to put it, they wearing the same pair of gloves and they're working the same invisible arm from the fourth dimension. And what did I find that I was setting up? Well, I liked King Crimson and Genesis, so I wanted to talk to those guys. I mean, they came and played in my house. They stunk up our universities. They incited all sorts of crime and melodrama. And they had lyrics that needed to be subject to academic review. I managed to find something good about them, so I said, "Hey, what's up, gentlemen?" They were like, "Well, we love you, man. You're great. You know, I hear Mick Ronson kissed you." And then, back knife. What gives? Who is the Guru Corona to write a script and say I'm to blame for somebody who didn't even die? I don't know. Supposedly he really died, and I'm to blame because I got my brains beat in, couldn't understand some letters. I never hid the letters from anybody. They were in our dining room. If they were so suspicious, why didn't one of the adults who saw them read them and say, "Holy mackerel, call Jimmy's daddy"? They were by the friend of a daughter of one of the magistrates. And one of the magistrates is named Kaplan, so they get a guy named Kaplan to defend her. With Registergrad, Kuka Corona, and George Bush comes in with the Swami Nostras from the VA. Uh-uh.